So basically where I'm going to give you an identity IQ overview. Okay, so why we require this as a business purpose. Okay, so what benefits it brings to the business. Okay, then how exactly it brings in technical terms. Okay, so that is our technical overview, how exactly SailPoint works. Okay, and then what are the different functional elements Identity IQ uses to accomplish the business needs. Okay, and then what are the implementation strategy available, how we can design or how we can implement the custom need inside the SailPoint Identity IQ. Okay, so let me start with the first, why it is required. Okay, so before going to the Identity IQ, let's just understand why IDEM is required. Okay, identity and access management is required. So first point is obviously security. Okay, and along with the security we require a regulatory compliance. So basically means, let's say if I have access, okay, I am a ex employee of some bank, okay, and still they did not remove my access and I have a access, right? And if I can go and I can log in inside that particular bank details or bank statement or whatever, payment or cash, right? Whatever the access I have, if I will go and I will do some mischief or fraud, right? So I can get lot of money from that. So basically, to provide a security, let's say when user leaves the organization, all the access should be removed. Okay, so you cannot log in inside that particular means bank details or bank online stuff. Okay, to particular application. So similarly, if I am a current employee, right? So whatever the task I am doing on regular basis, right? So only that particular task I need to I need to have a access. Okay, other than that, there should not be extra access to me. Okay, so to to provide such security and to provide such regular compliance needs, we should require this security and regulatory compliance. Okay, so where basically we can go and we can have just a minute. Yeah. So where we can go, so we need to have a user's access review. Okay, so where we can go and we can review the access whether the user has a proper access or not. Okay, if unwanted accesses are there, we can go and we can remove it. Okay, so such features should be available. Second thing, segregation of duties. So what exactly this is? So yesterday I mentioned, right, one of the bank example I have given, that if I am approver, then I should not pay any cash to the user. Okay, so if two different accesses I possess, okay, which should not be, then we need to enforce that segregation of duty. That hey boss, this particular user has some unwanted stuff or some high privilege stuff. We need to go and we need to remove it. Something. So we need to enforce that segregation of duty, right? Third thing is, if I'm raising a new access request, right, then every time we need to check, okay, whether I am raising a appropriate access and in a compliance standard or not. Okay, if it is not, then simply we need to stop the user. Hey boss, you cannot raise because you are possessing some other access which is in a conflict with this one. Okay, so that provisioning a new access should be in a compliance with provided the standard, and these compliance standards are different for each and every company based on their country or based on their policies. Okay, and then last is deactivate access quickly when users leave the organization, right? So as I mentioned, if I am an ex-employee, immediately on my last day, my access should be deactivated. Otherwise, many fraud happens. And previously in real world also that the things happen. Okay, so we require the security and regulatory compliance as a part of a business need, and that is provided by this identity and access management tool. Okay, along with that, now this is about the regulatory. Now, along with that, what are the services we are providing to the business? So basically, the services is user should go and raise the request. and that particular access should be provisioned automatically. Okay, that should not be a manual intervention required by some of the guy. If manual intervention is there, then again it will take a time, right? So to provide such features, what exactly the business needs is, so provision the required access quickly. So whatever the request has been raised by user, it should be provisioned quickly. Okay, and then along with that, what user wants is, if some of the application uses the password to log in, right? So if they forgot the password, or if their password is expired, then no need to communicate directly to the application team. They require such UI where they can go and they can just reset their password. Okay, so that is available in identity and access management. Okay, and next is access change request. So basically this means is, previously I have some access, now I don't want that access, I want new access, right? So basically that should be easily done by the user or maybe some manager. Okay, so there is not much means not much manual intervention required after the placing the request. Okay, so that is a need. And last is IT efficiency is required. So what is the IT efficiency? As you know, right, if my ID account got locked, what we are generally doing, we are calling the IT support of particular organization and saying that, hey boss, my password, could you please reset my password because I am not able to log in. Or even we are raising some ServiceNow or Jira based ticket, right? Whatever the ticketing tool they are following to get that particular thing done, right? So first is, we need to lower that. Okay, so we require something that this particular call volume should be lower. Okay, and last is increase the amount of administration automation. So obviously I mentioned that it should be always automatic, no manual intervention required, so that user will get quick accesses or quick password reset kind of functionality, so they no need to contact to anyone. Once they submit, they will get it. Okay, so such kind of a features are available within a identity and access management, and are generally needs of a user or maybe a business or particular organization, right? So now, why identity IQ? Okay, so now this is my requirement and that is provided in identity and access management, right? But now there are different tool available like Oracle Identity Manager, then TOLE Manager, right? Then CA Manager, then Savient is there, and many other tools are available, right, for the identity and access management. Then why we require this identity IQ? Okay, so first is, so there are multiple points, but just I am going for through the business point of view. Okay, so if you consider, let's say, implementation perspective, then it is very easy. We have a direct objects available for each and every particular functionality. We can directly get that object and we can process that object similar to the uh, how we are doing in Java. Okay, so we can compare whenever implementation is there. We can compare this particular Sailpoint tool with the Java. Okay, so then it would be easy for us. So there are many things available. Okay, Sailpoint Identity IQ provide one screen for the implementer and same screen for the users also. So it is very friendly tool as per the implementation, but I'm going with the business one. So what exactly the thing? So if you have seen in previous slide, so this is something, a security regulatory compliance. So we required a compliance, right? So to provide a compliance kind of functionality, we have a business friendly access governance system. Okay, where the access is governed by this IGA, or basically a Sailpoint Identity IQ tool. Okay, so how exactly it can be done? So we can confirm and enforce the list access across all the application. Okay, so that means Sailpoint Identity IQ ensures that, okay, if users has a access to some applications, so those are a least access which is required by a user. If some high privilege accesses are there, Sailpoint Identity IQ itself notifies that, oh, hey boss, this is a high privilege access, you should stop it. Okay, so that is a thing available. Second thing, we can model and enforce the business and IT policies. Okay, so whatever the business policies are defined, whatever the IT policies are defined, that we can model within this particular identity IQ easily. Okay, and obviously the auditing users access and the controls around the access. So whatever the user is doing in SailPoint, okay, and whatever the access he has, everything's are audited within the SailPoint, We can pull out the report also. We can see the audit logs also, what are the users access has been there. And also we can see the how exactly once user raise the request, how exactly it flows within the Sailpoint Identity IQ. Okay, so those stuffs available. Who has raised the request for whom whom the request has been raised, and who has approved the request, at what time it has been granted. So all those stuffs are available. Okay. Last is obviously if these things are available, then it enforces the compliance within the identity IQ. And this thing is done by the access governance within the identity IQ. Okay. Now, this is about controlling. Okay, controlling the thing. Now, what about the provisioning? So provisioning means provisioning basically is, so there are two terms frequently I will use. One is provisioning and another one is a deprovisioning. Okay, so what exactly the provisioning is? Provisioning means once user raise the request, okay, we are going to provide that access to the user. Okay, how it will provide? By connecting to the target application, because every time we need to provision the access inside the target, right? So to provision to grant that particular access in the application, it is called provisioning. So we are granting it. Okay. Now, similarly in reverse way, if users is raising a remove request or SailPoint itself is removing some access of the user, okay, from the target application, it is called deprovisioning. So provisioning is granting the access and deprovisioning is revoking the access. Okay. So here the access provisioning means how we can grant the access to the user. Okay. So we are doing a provisioning. So here, so provisioning provided by the Sailpoint Identity IQ is within a bounds. Okay, so providing and enforcing the least access. So whenever user raises the request with the high privilege, we can stop him. Hey boss, you cannot raise because this is very high privilege access. You should not raise. Okay, if such business and IT policies are available. Okay, so we can accommodate that thing to stop the user by raising such high privilege request. Okay, and then at automating the provisioning. So obviously once the request is raised, it might go for the approval as per the business need. Once the approval is done, automatically access should be granted, okay, to the user. So maybe some of the by default connectors are available or by default applications are available within the SailPoint, which will be automatically grant the access, okay, to the user. And some of the access means some of the applications are not available. We can also do a customization. So there is an implementer job who will implement that thing and directly provision inside the target application. Okay, so that we are going to see in some next modules. Okay, then obviously providing a control to the business, so managing the password, access change request, and so on and so forth. Okay, so those things are available within the identity IQ. It is easy to use by a user. Okay, so that's why we are going for the identity IQ. Okay, so now yesterday we have seen that SailPoint identity IQ components. So here I already mentioned that uh, business has a different applications available. Okay, now to provision the access and to enforce that, okay, users has a proper access and there should not be unwanted access to the user, we have that particular business need, right? So users should have at least a proper access, not more than that. So that is our business need, and this need uh, is completed or is completed by this particular SailPoint identity IQ by providing two things. One is a business model, and another one is a business analytics. So business model is something we are using the we are focusing on business need and we are granting the access to the users. Okay, so that is our business model, and that business model have this particular platform available within it. Okay, so what are those platforms? So one is a policy model, that which access should be granted to the which user. Something kind of policy has been written, we can write within a SailPoint identity IQ. Then another one is the identity warehouse, where all the users details lies. Okay, so we can go and we can check what access the user has, which application access user has, what are the job title, or what is the job title, or what are the different department users belong to. So all the details will be available within the identity warehouse. And to get that, but to get the application access, we also have a role model available within the Sailpoint, okay, that we need to create. Okay, so that role model is there. We need to just see the role, and user will just see the role. They will go and they will raise the access request, and they can raise only if it is within a policy model. Okay, so that particular things are there. Now once user raises the request, okay, so it will follow some workflow. Okay, let's say in some business saying, hey, some accesses, if user is raising, we don't require the approval, just go and provision the accesses. Okay, so this workflow directly go and provision it. Okay, if some business says that no, we require two level of approval once user places the request, we require two level of approval, then this workflow we need to write a workflow in such a way that it will go and it will follow the two level process. Okay, so this workflow engine is available by default for many of the functionality, but if any custom workflow is required as per the business need, we can also write this workflow engine. Okay, now once the access is granted, so every we have this risk model available, okay, within a Sailpoint, that will always monitor that okay, all the accesses which user has are under the risk model. If user has a high risk, then it will trigger an email or maybe a approval page or something in Sailpoint. Okay, so that can be controlled by a risk model. So this is overall a platform which is provided by the Sailpoint. Now along with that, let's say once user access has been assigned, now I want to see those access, or I want to see who is the manager. I want to see that okay, I want to see the identity details. Then that particular dashboard is available within the Sailpoint. Okay, now w- let's say I want in a report format, Excel or PDF for the audit purpose. Okay, so I can pull out the detail of each and every user with all the accesses on which application they have access, which accesses user possesses, all the thing we can get it as a report as well as the analytics. Okay, so by comparing, okay, how many accesses has been revoked in this year, how many access has been granted in this year, so some kind of a functionality is there. Okay, so these two combines our identity IQ, okay, Sailpoint identity IQ tool. Okay, now, so what exactly the so this particular thing, okay, so this particular thing are available within the means Sailpoint identity IQ. One is third party provisioning. So third party means user is raising the request to the Sailpoint, but for the Sailpoint, all the application are third party application. Okay, so we are connecting this application, okay, with the connector. So these are the connectors. Okay, so these are the third party application where we are going to provision our accesses. Okay, so that is third party provisioning tool, we can call it as a. Then mobile device management, so basically we can use this Sailpoint in mobile also, and it's a similar features what is available in the UI also. So that provides the same thing in mobile device also. Then obviously IT service manager management, because it follows all the IT service norm and granting access on the IT accesses, right? So it follows the IT service management, and obviously it provides the security. So security means within a one click or 1 second, all the access has been removed if those are unwanted. Okay, so that thing it provides. No need to raise any manual ticket to other team, application team to revoke it. It simply go and just remove it. So we can also make this sale point like once user leaves, any action has been performed on user's movement or leave or user is leaving, immediately it will go and it will remove the unwanted accesses. Okay, so those things are available within the SailPoint Identity IQ. Okay, now so this is about the how business works and why we require the identity and access management, and why we are going with the identity IQ. Okay, and then these are the components now. So these all are the business stuff. Now technical overview. So technical overview means basically our understanding is now we have individual tool available within the premises, right? Now we want to connect to other target applications or application for which user needs the access, right? So what we need to do in that scenario? So just assume that the above part is our SailPoint Identity IQ. Okay, and lower part is third party application or target application. Let's say it's a JDBC application or a Active Directory application or even a cloud based application, any other application, web service based application. Okay, so this is a target application where generally users needs the access. Okay, so below part is my target application. Now, what first thing we need to do is when we connect to the target application, Sailpoint does not have anything. Okay, Sailpoint is completely blank. Just understand. Right now we have deployed it. Sailpoint is completely blank. Now, to get the data, what we require a third-party application because all the accesses are lies within this application. And before onboarding this Sailpoint, all the application accesses which user has also lies inside the application, right? So to show the accesses to the user, what we required is we require to get a detail from application. Okay, so that application details we can bring it to the Sailpoint by this aggregation. Okay, so aggregation is a terminology to read the data from application to the Sailpoint identity. Okay, so this is called aggregation, and there is an aggregation task available which runs against the application connection and application's details and pull the data accordingly within the Sailpoint identity IQ. Okay, now, so what exactly the data it will bring? So first is entitlements. Okay, so if you see the entitlements catalog, let's say if this is my application one, so these are my entitlements. So entitlement is nothing but the single access available within the application. Okay, so these are my some accesses which I am loading. Okay, and single access of a application is called as entitlement in Sailpoint. Okay, so this is my entitlements, and that entitlements are available within the entitlement catalog. Now let's assume that we have another application which is integrated, so we are loading another sets of entitlement. Okay, so these all are the entitlements which user can see, and user can go and raise the request to have that particular access assigned to him. Okay, so that is within an entitlement catalog. So first we are loading is entitlement. Now another thing is, so we don't have a Sailpoint identity IQ previously, but user still has a access to the application, right? Initially, when we have application, users has access. So we are running the aggregation task. We are pulling this application accounts within the Sailpoint identity IQ. Okay, so now we have a accounts. Okay, this particular user has this particular application account, and that application account has this many entitlements access. Two accesses are there for this particular identity. So similarly, if we have a thousands of identity and if thousands of identity access are there here, we can easily load it. Okay. Now, let's say we have some authoritative application, let's say HRMS. Okay. Yesterday, I gave you one example about the HR application, right? So HR application data that we can trust it. Okay. First name, whatever the first name is available for the user here, we can use the first name in the Sailpoint identity IQ. Similarly, last name, we can use the last name within the Sailpoint identity IQ. So we are going to populate that identity attributes. Okay. So here in Sailpoint, identity is nothing but the user. Okay. So whatever the user has, so whatever the user is there, user's virtual representation is called as identity within the Sailpoint. Okay, so just understand this is a user. Okay, so human symbol is there, so you can understand this is a user. So user has a different attributes called first name, last name, email ID, job title, department, and so and so forth, right? So those identity attributes can be populated by this application. Okay, if it is a authoritative, then only we can populate. Okay, so we can also get the identity attribute by reading the data. So this is about just reading the data. Okay, how we can do, how we can bring the data, that we will see later. Okay, for the just understanding, previously we have a blank Sailpoint identity IQ. Now we have a data from the application. Okay, inside the Sailpoint identity IQ. Now, once we have a data, so what is next thing we need to do? Okay, so there are two things available. First thing, we can use the same thing whatever we have loaded. Okay, user will go, user can see this entitlement catalog available. User can raise the particular access request and they can get it within a target application. Okay, now, but let's say I am a new joinee. Okay, then I want a local admin rights access. I want some portal access. Okay, that is by default needed, and I want third access for the database. Okay, so as a by default new joiner, I want three accesses. Okay, so let's assume that just I joined it, and someone is telling me, hey, go and raise the three accesses. Okay, I will go. I will raise the three accesses. it will go for the approval process. Once approval is done, the access has been granted, right? Now, what exactly the things are available here? If you see, I joined it. I raised the request. I am new. I don't know about the system. Someone guide me. So his time is waste. My time is waste. After that, I need to wait for approval. Okay, till the time approval is there, I need to wait. I am sitting idle, right? I could not work because I don't have access. Now, once approval is done, it will go and it will provision. So it might take 2 to 3 days, or it might take 1 day, or it might take 10 days to get the access. Okay. So now let's say such 50 access is required while joining the organization, right? So if I will go, I will raise the 50 accesses. Approval needs to approve those 50 accesses, right? So it will take a lot of time. So instead of that, if we can club those 50 entitlements or three entitlement, which I told you, right, inside one role. Okay, so we have this role functionality available. So if we club those particular 50 entitlements inside one role, then now what I need to do, I need to go and just raise the one role request instead of 50. Now I need to raise a one role request. So up when it goes for the approval can easily understand, okay, this is a role and this is a user's detail, so I need to approve it or deny it, right? Instead of going individual 50 users access one by one and approve or revoke, they can easily go and easily understand. Okay, so that would be more easy in terms of a business. Okay, so generally we will create a business role based on the requirement. Second thing, instead of raising a 50 request manually, we can automate this particular roles to assign it directly whenever users joins the organization. Let's say if this is a user, I need to grant this particular role request. Okay, so that role request, we can directly raise it and we can directly grant it. Okay, so we are combining this entitlement inside one role for the easier purpose. Okay, so this is within a Sailpoint. Okay, there is no involvement needed for the application. Definitely while creating a role, we required application team involvement, but once it is done, it is a independent to the Sailpoint. Okay, now, so what we are doing here, we are modeling our entitlement inside the role, and we will have a proper view so that even users can easily understand, approver can easily understand, it can be go and provision within no time. Okay, so that's why we have created the roles. Now, along with the roles, what is the involvement? Okay, what we can model it again. So one is policy. Let's say first role should not be assigned with the second role to the user. Okay, so that policy we can enforce. Now, risk, if user has a 3 role request and those are high privilege requests, right? So whatever the risk involved, we can model it, okay, within this. And obviously last is role, what I explained you. Okay, so this is a business modeling. As per the business we did it. Okay, previously whatever the data we are getting from the target application, that is technical data or accesses. Now this is business modeling. Okay, as per the business we are doing. So this is a pure implementer job. Okay, whatever we are doing, that is implementer job. Now next is governance process. So we have modeled everything. Now next thing is our governance process. So governance process is saying, once we define modeling, now using that modeling, we need to detect, okay, what are the roles which is really not required to the user. Okay, which are the role which is really required by the user. Okay, is the accesses are proper. Okay, so those things are part of the governance process, and that is called detection. So now we have a model available. Through this model, we need to detect it. Okay, so to detect it, we have this certification. Okay, so certification is nothing but the access review for a user or for a particular application, okay, by some reviewer. So some reviewer will go and review that access, that user has currently this many access, whether those are proper or not. Okay, so those can be detected by certification. Okay, now second thing, as you know, we have created this risk and policy, okay, on roles. So this risk and policies also detects that, hey boss, user has some unauthorized access, or the access which is not required still user has. Okay, so this can be detected by some task or by some running it. So once this is detected, okay, so you know this roles and policy violation is detected, that this particular role should not have, but it is there, and assessment can be done by this. Okay, now once this is detected, it will go and it will revoke. So again, the revoke is removing. Okay, revoke is nothing but our remove the access from the user within the target application. So what Sailpoint do? hey boss, this user has unauthorized access, and someone says that okay, remove it. So Sailpoint will go and Sailpoint will remove that particular access from the target application. Okay, and once it is revoked, what Sailpoint Identity IQ do? It will refresh the identity now. So once it is refreshed, it will no longer be available within the Sailpoint Identity IQ. Okay, so first it will go and it will revoke the access from the target application, and then it will refresh the identity to display the proper data. Okay, so these things are there. So that is detection. And last is provisioning process. Okay, now so governance process as per the business need we completed. Now next is provisioning process. Now you know we have a roles created or entitlements created, right? I told you that user can go and raise the entitlement access and the role access. So user will always go and request for a change, either to add or either to remove. Once it is done, what Sailpoint will do? Sailpoint will go and provision the data. Okay, so provisioning is nothing but the granting the access. So it will go and it will grant the access to the user in target application, similar to how it is revoking. And then it will do the refresh. So all the data which is available within the identity are properly displayed. Okay. Now, while raising the request or provisioning request, always this particular stuff will be analyzed: policy violation and risk assessment. Okay, so this can be analyzed by while pressing the request, and if it is any detection is there, it will stop the users. Hey boss, you could not go and raise this request, please ask your manager. Okay, now once we loaded it here and once it is available in application, so again next run. Okay, next run, if any changes are available which is not done by a sell point, okay, that data change will be aggregated or read by a sell point identity IQ. So this is the overall process or overall technical overview of a SailPoint Identity IQ, how exactly it works, okay, and what are the different things is required within the SailPoint Identity IQ. So here main portion is governance process and another one is the provisioning process. Okay. So any doubt till now? Any question, or shall I move forward?
A couple questions. Can you repeat the provisioning process? And another question is, you're seeing the target application, right?
Right.
Let's say if I have Active Directory as a target application, the
Right.
aggregation process is going to read all the time, or is it a
Mhm.
one-time activity?
No. So basically what we are doing here, so in the reading, okay. So continuously we are reading as per the business need. Let's say in Active Directory, okay, if the frequency of a data changes are very less, right? So in this
Mhm.
scenario, we can schedule the aggregation task. Okay, one task is available, we can schedule the aggregation task. Okay, on weekly basis, on a monthly basis, on a daily basis, as per the business need. Okay, so if data frequently change, then we generally use the daily aggregation. If data are not change in on very frequent basis, then we can trigger it on monthly basis. So that is completely dependent on business need. But generally for Active Directory and HRMS, so those two are main application. Okay, in any organization, right? So for those application we are running it daily. But let's say we have
Because
some database.
because if a new person joins the company,
Right.
HR might have created the profile, a couple days back,
Correct.
and then
Correct.
overnight it will get synced up with the identity
Right.
IQ. And then when the user comes to office, his identity
He
is
will
valid.
have correct.
And another
So
thing is, so let's say typical example of Active Directory, right? There is no role concept in Active Directory. It's all groups.
mhm,
So when you
mhm,
do the aggregation process, you sync those Active Directory groups as roles into Identity
correct.
IQ. Okay.
Correct. So see, for each and every, I'm not talking about particular Active Directory, but for each and every application, okay, different attributes of that particular application holds the accesses. Okay, so in Active Directory, you told that group is there. In database, if you go for the database can have any table, okay, which holds this particular roles or entitlements, right? Similarly, if you go for the web services based application, so that particular web service can have any of the tag for the accesses, right? So
Okay.
those tag we need to map as a group here in Sailpoint IdentityIQ, and we need to load that particular data. So for Active Directory, yes, definitely we have that group concept or member of fields, right? So that particular thing we need to load inside this Sailpoint, and Sailpoint consider that as a group, okay, or a particular
Okay.
access or entitlement. So
Okay.
similarly for each and every application, so those are the different thing available. Okay, so
But
that we need
the
to configure.
okay, I think the aggregation process is a configuration kind of thing, or is it a coding portion?
See, so obviously configuration kind of thing is there. Okay, there is no doubt.
Okay.
If it is a straightforward loading or straightforward data is available within the target application, definitely it's only a configuration. But let's assume that you have give the Active Directory example, right? So in Active Directory, we have a group information available within one OU. Okay. Now,
Mhm.
when we load that data, we can see that okay, there is no description available. Okay, for that particular group. Now,
Okay.
we need to add the description. Okay, in such a way by using our some value name plus
Yeah.
some particular other objects, right? So we need to
Right.
create that particular description within the Sailpoint Identity IQ so that the user can easily understand, right? So in this scenario, we need to write some logic to get the description and store it inside the entitlement.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this is
That's
the
a
this is the
particular.
coding.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Got it.
right,
Got it. Got
right.
it.
So
Thank
if it
you.
is a straightforward, then definitely no codes are involved. Okay,
Yeah. Typically, most of the tools are like that. There is a common
right,
process that can be given as a UI component or a configuration.
correct,
Anything beyond that point of time, it's a customization. Okay. And
correct,
please
correct.
repeat the provisioning process one more time.
Yes, yes. So I'm here only. So yeah, in provisioning process, what happens? So let's say I I want access to the particular website, okay, within the organization. Okay, now when I'm raising that means I want access, so definitely what I will do in that particular organization, we have some ticketing tool or maybe some provisioning tool or application which is available with me. I will go, I will check, okay, what are the different accesses available, right? And then I will go, I will select that access. I will write some justification why this particular access is required, and then what we will do, we generally go and submit it, right? Then in backend, some other process will happen. Okay, so let's say first it will go for the approval, manager approval, then owner approval, then another approval. So whatever the business specific things are there, it will do the process. Okay, once process is done, what it will do, it will assign maybe to the application team. Application will grant the access to me. Okay, that hey, now you have access to this particular thing. Okay, you can work it. So it will say, okay, my access has been granted. Now let me go and check it. So this generally user process will happen in each and every organization, right? So same thing we can do within the SailPoint also. So now what I can do is I will go to the SailPoint. I will go and I will select my access which is required. I will submit my request. So once the request is submitted, by default, as per the business need, it will go for the approval. Now, once approval is done, next task is no need to communicate to the application team and any of the application team. SailPoint itself will directly connect to the application. It will go. It will whatever the data they need to provision or whatever the access they need to write in some particular table or maybe some other mechanism. Okay, it will go. It will provision that. Okay, provision means grant the access on that particular application. Okay, and then return back the status. Hey, we have granted this particular access to the user. Okay, so that mechanism is called provisioning. So same thing here, if you see this user request change. Okay, so user request change means he can request the change for entitlement, which is an individual access to the application, and roles. Okay, so roles means combining of accesses. Okay, for the different application. So that is role. So user can see that particular access is available. Also the roles available. User can select that particular roles. Then user can submit it. Once it is submit, if approval process is there or not, that is a different part. Once it is approved, it will go and it should go and it should provision the data or grant the access within the application for which the access has been raised. Okay, so if you see if the access has been raised for the F1 entitlement, okay, then it will connect to the F1 application and grant the access. If it is raised for app2, then it will connect to the app2 application and grant the access. Okay, so in this way, it will directly connect to the particular application. It will grant the access, and that is called provision. So this is a provisioning process from here to here. Okay, this is a provisioning process. Once it is provision, data change will be detected in application. Okay, so once it is provision, by default for that user, it will go and it will aggregate the data. Okay, so this is internal mechanism. We no need to take care of this. Okay, once it is provision, it will always check whether the data change is properly provisioned or not. Okay, so that is provision. Once it is provision, it will run the identity refresh to display the identity attributes in UI properly. Okay, this access has been granted, let me refresh it so that it will display it in UI to the user. Okay, so it will refresh it. So this is what, from identity IQ to target application, it is called provisioning. Okay, and if data will go in reverse way or vice versa way, means from target application to the Sailpoint identity IQ, it is a aggregation process. Okay, so this is provisioning from Sailpoint to application, and aggregation is something application to the Sailpoint. So this is always a data flow. Okay, so
So
this is
yeah,
about it.
I think the
Yeah.
arrow is a little confusing. Probably,
Mhm.
applications are not going to push any data to Identity IQ, but upon provisioning, Identity IQ may read the information from the application. Yeah, here, yeah, I got it. So
No, no, no. Arrow is not confusing. See, simple thing. See, my arrow is, this arrow is going from identity IQ or Sailpoint to application, right? So
right,
if Sailpoint to IQ it will go, it is called provisioning.
right,
Sailpoint is going to grant some access in target application. Okay, so that is called provisioning.
right,
Okay, so this is a provisioning process actually, what I am focusing.
right, right.
Okay, I'm not
Yeah.
focusing on this one. I have focused this thing in read data mode. So reading, if you see this aggregation. So now my arrow is something from here to Sailpoint identity IQ. Okay, if you see here, it is going from here to Sailpoint identity IQ. So whenever we read the data from target to the Sailpoint, it is called aggregation. Okay, so
So
this is
in this
provisioning
case,
process. Yeah.
okay, let's assume the company is using a SQL Server database. So
Mhm,
SQL Server do not have any intelligence that it needs to push a signal to Identity IQ in case of user
mhm,
data has changed,
mhm.
right? It's always Identity IQ that's going to read that information.
Correct,
Yeah,
correct, definitely. So what we are doing is, let's say, so in SQL, obviously we have a queries, right?
yeah,
So we will get that queries, okay, whatever the data is there, let's assume that we are talking about the accesses. So when we discuss with the application team, our question is where exactly the access has, all the accesses lies, okay, in which particular table, how exactly the table looks like, what is the structure of the table, right? So once that is done, what we are doing is we are just using that query, select query, and we will write in one of the configuration. Okay, this is my select query. So whenever we run this aggregation, what Sailpoint will do? Sailpoint will take that query, will run that query on SQL server, and whatever data it is getting, it will store, it will aggregate, or it will store inside the Sailpoint identity IQ. Okay, so that is a process. Similarly, when we're writing a process, okay, so here when we write the data inside the application or provision the data inside the application, definitely we require either insert query, either update query, either delete query, right? So we are writing those query as a part of provision, okay, to grant or to create the account, to update the account or anything. So that we are going to write. So for database, definitely we have individual tables available for each and every database. So we require those query to write it. Okay, but let's talk about the Active Directory. So Active Directory have a single structure. Whatever you are following, it will go and it will provision in same particular data, right? So there we no need to write any query or anything. We just need to configure it. Okay.
right.
Once we configure, it will automatically load the data. But to write or to read from the database, we need to write a query. Okay, so that thing is available for the
Okay.
SQL Server or MySQL or any other Oracle database. Okay.
Um, Vinod,
Yep.
how is the Identity IQ manages the passwords through the provisioning?
Okay, so that I will show you in a demo session. But let's assume that currently, so we have Active Directory, right? So Active Directory, whenever we are connecting to the username and password, right? Means while logging inside the window, we use the username and password. In organization, it is stored that username will be stored as a same account name in or maybe a email ID in Active Directory, right? Along
Mhm,
with that, they have a password field available, right? So
mhm,
that password field is something means it's in an encrypted form, right? So
mhm,
password field is available. So what Sailpoint is doing, Sailpoint reads that password field, and Sailpoint also posts that password field to the Active Directory. Okay, so when we go and when we reset the password, okay, so when here means Sailpoint will provide a UI where user can see his Active Directory account. He can submit the new password. If old password is required, we need to write that old password is required. If it is not required, user will go and write new password, confirm password, and once submit, it will go and it will connect to the target application, Active Directory application. Basically, in our scenario, it will check where means in by default, Sailpoint provides the connector for the Sailpoint. It will go, it will directly change that particular password in target application, and it will say okay, once it will change, it will just check that okay, it has been changed properly or not, and then the status has been updated in Sailpoint. Now once it is changed in target application, not in Sailpoint. Okay, so now next time when user will go and log in inside his Windows machine with the new password, his password has been changed, so he can able to log in. Okay,
okay.
so in this way
Is
password
the
will
is the
yeah.
password will be encrypted on the target application?
Correct, it will be encrypted.
So is not done by the Identity IQ, but it should be done by the Active Directory.
I think
Correct, Active
instead of
Directory. So that is the logic of Active Directory. What we are pushing is whatever user has entered the password, right? That we are pushing to the target application and we are storing it. Now, internally, target application might have used that particular password encryption for message, right? So they will change the password and encrypted the password and store it there in Active Directory. But once it is pushed to the target application, SailPoint does not store any password. Okay, so user knows whatever he entered and target application knows what is stored.
Okay,
So SailPoint itself not storing a password.
but there is a password fields in the Identity cube, right? They are different. The user.
Uh, yes, so basically we don't have any field for the password. Okay, we have a functionality to log in within a SailPoint. Okay, so
Ah,
that
that,
password is
that
no,
password.
that password is a SailPoint password. Let me just go and log in inside the SailPoint. Okay, so if I want to log in inside this SailPoint, I can use that particular password to log in it. If I want to change it, SailPoint provides the functionality to change it. Okay, but that is for a SailPoint to log in within a SailPoint. Okay, it is
Hmm.
not for the another application.
that means it's only for SailPoint admins or SailPoint
Correct,
developers, not for the
correct. Yeah.
general users. Okay, got it.
Right. So in actual environment, so maybe if you are working in lower environment like dev or test, if you are a developer or a tester, you can change the login password. But in prod, generally, what we are using the SSO, okay, single sign-on.
Mhm.
So where we directly connect to the AD, okay, and whatever the password is there, we can just use that means as the authentication. So once user will hit the link of SailPoint, okay, they will directly log in by authenticating against the Active Directory. Okay, so those mechanism is there.
Okay.
And also similarly, if you've gone through some website, right? So they also provide the forget password functionality. Okay, so that forget password functionality is also available within a SailPoint. If user forgets that, he can just click on forget whatever the mechanism we have written on inside that. Let's say they need to ask security question, or we need to send some message to the particular user. Then it is followed. Okay, automatically followed. So that mechanism is also available. But those are SailPoint password. It is not a target application password. Password reset is for the target application, what we are talking right now.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So this is just a technical overview. Now, next is, so we have talked what are the different things available, what we need to do in SailPoint. But to do it, what exactly available in SailPoint? So obviously SailPoint works on the objects. Similarly, how Java works, right? Java always works in object. Java is always object-oriented language, right? So similarly, the SailPoint is also works on objects only. Okay, so we can compare the Java and SailPoint both. Okay, so you are the Java guys, so I'm just giving a brief that we can always compare whatever the objects you are using, you can compare it. Okay, now what is so we need to write an object, we need to work on object, we need to act on object. Okay, so to act on objects, so what exactly, so who will act on objects? So either user will raise the request and that request will be converted inside the objects, or schedule task. Okay, so as you told me, right, so active directory aggregation, how frequently we are using, so I said 1 day because it's a main authority application. If less data has been changed, then 1 month something, right? So we are scheduling the task. So aggregation is nothing but our task. So that task work on this object or acts on this object. Okay, and that objects will process some data. Okay, so objects contain some data and that data has been processed. Now next is business processes acts on objects. Business process is nothing but the workflow. So let's say once you raise the request, right, user raises the request, what is the business need? It should go for the approval. So first step is go for the approval. Second step is to whom we need to send the approval, right? So we need to identify the users to whom we need to send the approval. Once we get the approval data, once we get the user, we are sending that particular approval to the user. So that is my third step. Now approver approves it, then I need to connect to that particular target application and provision it. If approver reject it, what I need to do is just cancel the request and stop there. Okay, if some comments has been entered and if some exception is allowed, we need to process accordingly, right? So this is my steps which I am following. So those steps are called as business processes in business term. Okay, and in technical term it is called as workflow. We are following some work, right? So it is called workflow. So business processes or a workflow also acts on the object. It always receive the object, is always return the objects, and is also do a process on the objects. Okay, workflow in response to the events or user requests. So whatever the user has been requested or whatever the events has been done, that is for in response to that, this business process works or acts on the object. Okay, so basically business process typically interact with the user. So whatever the user is required, it will directly interact and it will provision or grant the access or revoke the access accordingly. Okay, so these things are there. So mainly two things work. So two things will trigger here. One is a task, another one is a business process or workflow. Okay, no, next. So what is a task and what is a business process? So let's say I told you, right? So let's say loading the data from application to the identity. Who will do that? Can user request that, okay, please go and load it? No, means user is normal end user I'm saying. Okay, I'm not saying about the developer, I'm not saying about the tester. Okay, I'm just saying about the normal end user, and normal end user is our identity. Does identity or user can say that, okay, load the data from application to target application? No, it
No.
should be done by a implementer or a developer, that okay, this particular application data is there, we need to load it on a monthly basis, on a weekly basis, or on a daily basis, or in every 2 hours, right? So that is done through the task. Okay, so task is basically what developer or what implementer is creating on frequently basis to run it. Okay, so that is task. Next is refresh. Can refresh been triggered by a user? No, refresh is something we need to trigger, means implementer or developer needs to trigger. So that is task. But provisioning, so provisioning means, let's say uh, end user wants some accesses, right? So to get that access or to provision that access, user needs to access. He need to go to some UI portal. he need to submit the request, right? Then it will go and it will provision the access. So what next action should be taken, that is done by business process, because for each and every accesses maybe business process are different. For each and every user might be business process are different, but here to load the data, process is always same, right? And that should be done by a developer. So that is a business process. Okay. uh, Also, let's say I'm a approver or I'm a access reviewer. Okay, I'm reviewing the access. If I am revoking it, so I have revoked the access, so does it require a next approval? Because I am maybe a junior level, my senior level approval is also required, right? So if I am a senior level, then no approval is required. So that is done through the business process or workflow. What exactly the next workflow we need to follow? Okay, so this is the business process. So generally for provisioning we use the business process. Okay, and this is a aggregation, that is a task to load the data or to refresh the data within the Sailpoint. Okay, so that is basically a task and business process. Now next is identity IQ quick link. So quick link is basically what I can say is first point of triggering a workflow. Okay, first point of triggering a workflow. And to trigger a workflow or business process, we require a user intervention, right? Means either user need to raise the request, either the user needs to do some action on that particular action item. Okay, so to do that, what we are providing to the user is quick link. Okay, user can go to that particular quick link, do some stuff, and once it submit, it will go and it will hit the workflow or business process. Okay, so now, so what are the different quick link we are providing? So first is my task. Okay, my task is, let's say I'm a approver. So once approval is pending, I can see it under my task. Okay, one approval is pending. Okay. Second thing, okay, I need to check. I have raised the request. Now I need to check. Okay, where exactly the request is pending, with whom it is pending, whether it is provision or not, whether it is completed or not, right? So those type is my task. So I will go to this my task. I will see the quick links available. I need to just click it. So for this particular, so this is my main administrative tool. Inside the two things are there: transfer request and edit email template. Okay, so these are the quick links. So similarly, if I open the MyTask, that I will show you when I will have a session. Okay, demo session. Inside that some quick links are available. Similarly, this is just to see or just to approve it. Now let's say I want to raise a request to get some accesses. Okay, so for that we have a manage access and manage identity quick link. Okay, so here I can go and I can raise the request for accesses. I can raise a remove access. Manage identity is something modifying the data. Let's say my job title has been changed. Previously I am a Sailpoint developer, now I am a Sailpoint lead, right? So to change it within the organization, maybe admin team, or if you directly user has access, then he can go to this manage identity and go and change it. Okay, so there is another quick link available, and some custom quick link. So these are the custom quick link. Okay, so if you see this symbol, it is a custom quick link. We can create as many as custom quick link as we want. Okay, so here in this particular example, I have added two different modules or two different action or functionality within the administrative tool custom quick link. Okay, so here I can go. This is my first quick link, transfer request. Another one is the edit email template. This is not provided by the Sailpoint. This is done by me, or maybe a developer, or maybe an implementer. Okay, to accommodate the business need. So this is a custom one. So custom quick link is also, we can place it there. Okay, now once user will fill the data, once user will submit the detail, what it will do, it will launch the business process. As I mentioned, right, it is the first point of launching a business process or a workflow. Okay, now second thing, it is linked to specific area of UI. So if I will click on transfer request, it will show me a one form. Okay, and if I will click on edit email template, it will show me another form. Okay, another form means my UI basically. So this particular request has some specific UI, and this particular request has some another type of UI. Okay, so it is linked to specific area of UI. Okay, and what to link, what exactly we need to show the next thing, right? That is configured by implementation team or a developer. Okay, so that is a quick link. Now Next is a work item. So work item is basically something has been done within the cell point, and because of that, something has been triggered and it is pending in someone's queue. Okay, so let's say just giving an example. Uh, User is raising the request, so that is a taken by one action taken by an end user, right? Now once it is raised, it should follow the approval process. So now to approve this, something is pending in approval queue, right? So that is the second part, and that is called work item. Okay, due to one action another thing is pending, so that is a work item. And till the time work item completes, we cannot complete our next flow. Okay, once we need to, first we need to complete this work item. So there is something work that user needs to complete. Okay, so here you can see this particular action is pending. So if you see transfer request approval, so user needs to go, means approval needs to go and click on this. He will see, okay, this transfer request is there, whether I need to approve it or I need to revoke it. So based on his action, next action is triggered. Okay, so this is a work item. So what we have as a work item. So one is access request approval. So user is raising access request and approval needs to approve it. So that particular access request. Next is manual change. Okay, manual change means, let's say I my job title is wrong. Okay, I can see that my job title is wrong. Now I want to modify that job title. So I'm asking someone to please go and change my job title. Okay. So that is a manual change. So that is pending in a form. Okay. And that form needs to be changed accordingly and then approve it. Okay. Next is access review. So access review is, I already mentioned, it's a certification which we are triggering on maybe quarterly, semi-annually, or annually basis for as per the compliance need, right? So once we trigger it, it will wait for it. Okay, so wait for whom? It will wait for certifier, that hey, please go and check that whether the user needs the access or not. If he needs, approve it, otherwise revoke it. Okay, so that is access review. Third is policy violation. Policy violation is already mentioned that two simultaneous entitlements should not possessed by a user, right? So in this scenario, policy is detected and it is pending whether we need to provision both the data or we need to provision only one access or what exactly. So for that, approval is required. And last is delegation. So delegation is something, one approval is pending in my queue, I want to forward it to you. Okay, then I can directly go and right click and forward it to you. So I delegated my approval to you. Now you need to take action. So that is called delegation. Okay. So those are the steps are called as a work item. So that is something pending because of some action has been taken. Okay. Now, so something is pending in my queue. How exactly I know? So first thing, I need to go and log in into inside this Sailpoint. There it will show as a notification. Okay, one thing or two thing is pending. But usually we are not going through the sale point. Whenever we need the sale point access, then only we are going. So to notify that, we have a mechanism that we can send the email to the user, hey, something is pending, please go and take the action. We can also send the reminder, hey boss, you did not take action, though I have sent an email to you, but you did not take an action, please go and take the action. Okay, so those email templates we can send it to the approvers so that he can aware that okay, something is pending in Sailpoint, let me go and let me just take the action accordingly. Okay, so that is the work item. So till here, so these are the main objects available that we are going to focus while day-to-day implementation. Okay, now how exactly we need to implement. Okay, so when you go through the next modules, you will understand better. Okay, so, but to just give you a brief, what exactly we need to do. So let's say we have an Active Directory application. I want to onboard it. So what we will do? First, we will understand, okay, what exactly data is available within this Active Directory. Okay, how can I get those data within the Sailpoint? Okay, so that is my first step. So first, I will build the entitlement catalog, basically a group details from there. Establish the responsibility means I have an entitlement, I have a user, so what is the responsibility or accesses user has. Okay, and what I will do, if user has such unwanted accesses, we can perform the critical remediation on top of that. Okay, hey boss, this access should not be have, please go and check it, and someone will revoke it. So this is my first step. Okay, now second step is I need to create roles, okay, using this entitlement. Let's say if 10 groups should be assigned to one user, okay. So we are clubbing that 10 entitlement and we are creating the roles so that it is easy for the user as well as the approver, okay, to assign it. Now, once role is created, we define the approval. Who is going to approve this request whenever the role request has been placed? Okay. So for that, next hour is governance model. Okay, this is something a compliance baseline which we are following. Now we are creating our governance model and control. Now, once that is done, what is the next thing? Next thing is we are giving a data to the user. User will go and raise the request, right? So we need to configure the business process, then provisioning channel, and we need to monitor also. So that will deploy request services. So basically how user can raise the request, okay, and how we can fulfill the all the procedure once the request has been raised, whether it should follow approval, whether it should provision directly. So all the mechanism it should follow. So these are the three steps where we need to focus. Here, the second point, okay, second point might be optional, but definitely we need to define approvals. But second point is optional, but first and third is required if it is a provision-based application. Okay, so there is overall implementation what we do.